Hey, another update. Sorry, my camera sometimes doesn't start right away. I think my computer's getting old. Anyways, the Asian Way, an inside look at money making in Asia, commented 5 days ago. Sorry about the late reply, man. It's just been crazy busy. Been doing this development course on top of the business itself and being a family man and trying to stay in shape mentally, physically, socially. And I've started a project with software sales with a friend here in town. It's been busy. So I've finally gotten to your comment. It's been on my mind. So you ask, that's weird how it changes when I mouse over. Oh, I see. Anyways, what are your stats for the business? Current students, drop students, what kind of marketing do you do? On a side note, many business owners get stuck being a worker and not an owner in their business. I found with a good system and the right pricing, owners can become owners. Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. So let me just bring up a file from earlier this year. At the moment, I have 61 students, which, believe it or not, is pretty standard for a lot of English schools in Japan. Most of them, so I'm part of this online group. It's called English ETJ Owners. It's an online forum. When I joined, they were actually still using Yahoo Groups, which tells you a bit about how old they are. They've since switched over to Facebook Groups, which is just easier. Um, Convenience always seems to take the day. Oh wow, look at that! So at the end of March this year, I had 61 students, and now I'm back up to 61. That's pretty fascinating. I thought, hold on, let me just double check that because I was pretty sure. Yeah, so I've made up for it. So anyways, as I was saying about the group rambling there, most English schools of my size and actually larger, up to about 2 teachers, 3 teachers, according to the data from the survey in this group, have between 40 to 120 students. So I'm at the lower end of the spectrum, but I'm also a one-man show, so um, I'm doing pretty well, I would say, in terms of the grand scheme. My prices are pretty low though. I'm one of the cheapest schools around, and I set my prices not too cheap and not too expensive, just left of reasonable. And my thinking was, since I don't have any staff, um, I can afford to do that, and it provides value to the community because it helps people stick around longer. So I'm a parent. I have kids. I've got 3 of them, and I'm more than aware of how expensive it is to provide them with all the things you want. And the truth is, they're only young for so long. You've got a window of about 13 years, really, before they're kind of like they don't want to hang out with you anymore, and they're busy with their friends, and so on and so forth. So I set my prices like that intentionally um, for the area. So what else did you get to here? Yeah, many business owners do get stuck being a worker, which is a big reason why I've been kind of exploring other options. So far, to no avail. I tried the e-commerce thing, selling on Amazon Japan, and there's another one website here called Mercari, which is kind of like eBay. People just sell a bunch of used stuff. And Mercari is kind of a middleman. They just make sure there's no tomfoolery going on with products being sold, kind of an escrow service for funds and whatnot. So when I first started, this motor scooter ran by and I was really overwhelmed with how much there was to stay on top of, and I was also in a state of kind of subtle desperation because I really needed everything that came my way. And so I was very much just a worker bee. I was working really, really long days. I was taking offers I should have thought twice about. And I had a schedule that was just all over the map. And over time, I learned to consolidate it so that um, basically you start teaching one class and it should be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or I don't. I don't generally teach more than 6 classes a day, but yes, I found that having a system where you do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, and then you just don't think about it, getting payment envelopes ready, doing the billing, doing taxes, and then the teaching schedule itself, the closer together you can put classes, the better, because really it's almost as easy and as much of a commitment to teach 3 or 4 classes as it is to teach one, if they're one after the other. When you have them spread out all over the day, you become extremely unproductive. You lose a lot of the momentum you had. Your focus gets broken up, and you end up a lot more tired, and so that's no good. But yeah, I still do feel like a worker. I'm a solopreneur. I could conceivably hire someone to replace me, but on top of being a big risk and responsibility, it wouldn't be that much money for me. I wouldn't be making even as much as just a normal Eikaiwa teacher. If you think about it, in order to do that, I would have to be making roughly $5,000 a month after expenses, which for me at this point would be about 6 grand a month from 60 students. So what would that be? Just simple math. Probably about $100 per student without fail every single month. Yeah, so there's a point where it becomes kind of a slog and you're just spread really thin. So a lot of people say with English schools it's better to go really, really small, like I've done, or really, really big, like 10, 20 locations. There's I'm not quite sure how to explain it. I guess the best image is what they use, a bell curve, right? So it's shaped like a bell, and so on the left is kind of the numbers are much smaller. So in terms of students, um, if you get up to the sweet spot's right in the middle. So say 60 to, for one person, 60 to maybe 90 students if you had a lot of group lessons. Then you're making a really good living. But when you bring in another teacher or the student numbers kind of get out of control, the curve starts to drop down towards the right side of the graph, and that means you're actually being counterproductive. You're either spending too much energy, or you're not making enough money, and it happens a lot with businesses. Stress is a really good example. Like if you're on the left side of the curve, you're super relaxed, but you're not being very productive. And so productivity, the rise in the curve equates with productivity and effort, right? So you get to the sweet spot in the middle where everything's optimized and you're being really productive and efficient, but then you go a little bit to the right, and now instead of kind of erring on the side of being too relaxed and not doing anything, now you're entering burnout, where you've expended your energy and now you're actually doing more harm than good, and it just drops down to total failure, like something like bankruptcy or collapse or something. So for the time being at my age, with my schedule, I can do this, but I do feel I'm kind of hovering right at the top of the bell curve. So if I were to start teaching even more classes, I might reach the point where I was actually hurting myself in terms of just being overworked, and the quality of life would decrease. That's what happens when you don't do things the right way. So thankfully, with this recent connection I made in the past year, a really good guy, we've got some ideas we're working on. And I'm trying to use the opportunity I have now with a small amount of disposable income to invest in my own future, and by default, the future of my family. I would very much like to find something more scalable, more leverageable, and not quite so much of a, like, what they say in the US is wetback work, right? Where your income is proportionate to the amount of time and effort you spend making it. Of course, everyone has to work, but there is a point past which the returns diminish very rapidly, and the quality of life, and even the quality of your health, go along with it. They go down. So, awesome question. Yeah, you've got some really insightful comments there. So, good system and the right pricing. I could probably stand to raise my prices. What I've done instead over the years is just reduce the number of classes I teach in a year. Not dramatically. I think my first year I did 48 classes. This year, off the top of my head, I think it's 44. So people are paying the same, but they just get 4 less classes over the course of the year. So you maybe do like 1 extra week for New Year's, Christmas, and then an extra week for the Obon summer holiday, and then throw break at the end of March when the school year ends. And it's better for people. Some people have said, oh no, they have to do English like every week, blah blah blah. But after a week or 2 off, the kids come back, they feel really refreshed, they're happy, you're happy, the lessons flow a lot better, and it's not like they forget literally everything. I don't really focus on getting through the textbooks in my classes. I focus way more on the basics like pronunciation, especially phonics, reading, and speaking in simple phrases that have very clear meanings and cover like the basics of affirmative, negative, question tense, and maybe a little bit of first, second, third person with the kids. I've worked for other places that just go so over the top with their expectations, and it's just totally bizarre. The kids end up quitting after getting super stressed out by having these really unreasonable expectations forced upon them by, these big corporate schools that really don't know what they're doing, and their parents are dumping a lot of money into it, and it's just a bad scene. A lot of them end up just hating English, and I don't want to be responsible for that kind of thing. I want kids to have, when they think of the school or me or their class, we go, yeah, it was kind of fun. I learned, and they can still, get the pronunciation down and stuff. Because really, my thinking is anything beyond that is going to be almost entirely dependent on the individual interest and desire of the student themselves. There's only so much you can really elicit, generally speaking, for every student who walks in the door. And that's another thing, actually, that's really eased my life. It made it easier is that I don't expect too much from people, and I don't expect too much from myself. I try to be sincere in what I sell, and sincere in what I can get out of the students during their time in the lesson, and just treat them well, make them laugh a little bit, make them giggle, get them so they can actually pronounce things correctly, and have a solid general understanding. If a kid happens to be exceptional and responsive, then I'll go with that as far as it goes, realistically speaking. So I think that's probably a good approach in business in general. If you look at a business like Amazon, they're really very fair with their customers, what they offer, and when they expand services, it's always kind of proportionate to what's realistic at their level of capacity, I guess. Well, now they're a massive company, but if you look at the way they did it, it was very incremented and smart and in response to the market, and really putting the experience of the customer based on feedback first, and you get this reciprocal kind of reality-based growth model that's survivable, And that's really what you want in business. On top of making a living, you also want it to survive, and then you want yourself to survive. So anyways, that's probably good for this one. Awesome questions. So yeah, my school is not super duper busy, but it's pretty good for a one-man show. set against the background of the general statistics of businesses of this size in Japan. If I were any busier, I might not actually want it that way, even though it'd be more money. It's that bell curve thing. You reach that far side, and you just don't know, can't even think straight. You know, you'd actually pay people to have more time. So, anyways, there it is. Thanks again.